See, I can't just do it in the mornings. I have to do it in the evening as well. Welcome to our three-day mission hosted by JMJ Missions. We're very honored to have them here, and we're very excited to have them here this week, the next 3 days, and I hope you are as well. For those of you that are in attendance tonight, if you know somebody that is not, spread the word. We'd like to get them have a nice packed house for the next couple of nights as well. Now, I was looking at the seating arrangements here. This isn't Mass. You can move. You could move forward. Dan's not going to question you or anything like that. So if you want to move forward, you can. But that's all right, though. But anyway, we're very excited to have them here, and we're glad that you are here. Before I mention anything to introduce Dan, I want to mention, as you walk out, you'll see an offering in the back. We put that up there because JMJ Missions has graciously offered to do this at no fee because of the pandemic and the way the churches have been struggling. So in gratitude for them, we'd also, if you'd be nice and generous today, to donate to them for not just for their time, but also for their missions as they continue to spread the gospel to other parishes. So you've heard me talk enough. I want to introduce Dan Palmieri, the third. I say that because back in June, he just had Daniel Palmieri the fourth, his very first child. And yesterday he was here at our... As you may have seen, he was here at our blanket mass yesterday, even though yesterday was the baptism of his son. So we're very glad to have him here, and please make Dan feel welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Deacon, first off, Catholic Community of the Holy Spirit. Not a lot of churches called Catholic Community of this or that, and I see why, because since I've been interacting with Deacon, with Father Field, with all of you guys, it's been a huge blessing. I see what a great community you guys are. I've felt super welcomed last Sunday at the masses, yesterday at the Bishop's Mass. I mean, that was definitely the most amount of people I've ever spoken in front of, 500-600. It was for 2 minutes, but you guys are so welcoming, And then here tonight, it's been wonderful. So you guys really do put a whole new spin on the idea of community, which we need so bad. We really do. In our church today, we really got to band together because our culture is so wayward in so many ways, and people need the joy of the Lord, and you guys bring it. So I just want to thank you guys for being here too, because it's none of this stuff happens without you being here. And also, when it comes to if you want to give to us, there's a Venmo. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant, when you have to scan your phone for the menu. We have a Venmo scanner on our little poster back there when you walk out if you don't have cash. And you can also go to our website. It's not expected. You really can't put a price tag on the gospel, but it does help. So just as an FYI. So again, thank you so much for having me. We're from JMJ Missions. JMJ meaning Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I'm the main speaker, so I do parish stuff. Anthony back there is taking photos. He's the confirmation speaker. He actually spoke to the 8th graders a couple weeks ago who are about to get their confirmation. And then Rocco is our third member of the trio. A friend of ours calls us the three Catholic Musketeers. I don't know. And he does the video editing. So you're going to see his editing, an example of that in a second. And you're going to hear about Rocco actually a lot tonight. He couldn't make it tonight. He'll be here tomorrow and also on Tuesday. But before, actually, you know what? If you want to cue the little sample clip, we have a sample clip of our stuff. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. So this is the example. Okay.
A lesson on film and faith by Rocco, narrated by Anthony. First up, we have the key light. This is the most important light. Everything else revolves around this light. Just like the Lord, He has to be the center of our lives. Next is the catch light. This adds life to the subject, really makes their eyes pop. And lastly, we have the Rembrandt triangle, just like the Blessed Trinity. And I think Rembrandt painted spiritual things too. I'm not really sure. I hope he did.
That's just an Instagram clip that Rocco edited, but we do a lot of YouTube stuff, and we also have a podcast. So if you want to see our stuff, you can go to our YouTube or our podcast or our website for all that kind of information. So, little question for you guys. I don't know if you heard about the guy who was actually almost eaten by a lion. It was a few weeks ago. There's a man who was running from a lion out in the jungle, and now lions are really fast. He's running really fast, and the lion's gaining on him and gaining on him. And in a last-ditch effort, he just drops to his knees, and he says a prayer, and he says, God, please make this lion a Catholic. Make him a Catholic. So he ends the prayer, he gets up, he turns around, and to his great surprise, the lion's on his knees praying. He goes, oh my gosh, the prayer worked. So he goes up to approach the lion, and then he hears the lion say, bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which you're about to receive from thy mouth. On a similar note, there was a priest, got pulled over. He had been drinking a little too much after dinner one night. Got pulled over, and the cop comes up to the window, says, Father, have you been drinking? What's in the car? He goes, oh, it's just water, officer. Officer says, why does it smell like wine then? He looks in, peeks, and sees it. Priest says, oh my gosh, he did it again. All right, so it's so bad. I can only say that in some parishes. People seem open and fun, I can say that joke. All right, so brief explanation of who I am and what we, mentioned what JMJ Missions does, but where I'm coming from, I had a major conversion experience when I was 19, which you'll hear about. I was not in my faith before that. Then I went to college and became a part-time youth minister as I finished my studies at Rowan. And then I became a full-time youth minister in Atco and then over at Hamilton. And then I went to the seminary for 2 years. Then I was kicked out. Just kidding. Was not kicked out. I discerned out to get married, happily married now. Like Deacon said, my wife and my first son are back there watching. So happy they're able to come. And then I became a Catholic school teacher, theology. I teach at Holy Cross in Delran. But the idea came to me a couple of years ago. I thought, teaching is great. I love teaching the students. But there's a lot of downtime that teachers have, and I think I could be doing more for the Lord. So I actually did a novena to the Lord, and maybe I'll talk more about that at the end. But the thought came, maybe I could be a speaker. I'll just say it now. Basically, I was doing an 9-day novena to the Blessed Mother in honor of the Immaculate Conception, which was going to end on December 8th of 2018. And on the 8th day of the novena, I had asked for a sign if I'm supposed to start this ministry. And it was the 8th or 9th day of the novena, I was talking about relationships. And because I was speaking to the seniors about the vocation to marriage, the seniors at the high school. And what happened was, as I'm speaking, a student puts his hand up and says, Mr. P, can you talk about breakups and how do I overcome a good breakup and, how do I get through these things? And I said, oh my gosh, put my chalk down. I said, I can tell you all about breakups, And I just kind of rambled, which I thought was rambling, for about 5 or 6 minutes about my own personal story. And before I knew it, you realize you could hear a pin drop in the room. And to get 17, 18-year-old kids to, really focus in during religion's no easy feat. I thought, wow, this is going pretty well. And then I see another student put their hand up. I said, yeah, Clark, what do you want to say? And he said, Mr. P, you should be a motivational speaker. Now, I had never had anyone say that to me my entire life, which is weird that it was on, I believe, the 9th day of the novena to Our Lady in honor of the Immaculate Conception. So I thought, okay, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do a speaking ministry. And I went to my friend Anthony, my best friend. I said, I think I'm starting like a speaking ministry. Maybe we can make YouTube videos. And I thought he was going to shoot it down. No, Dan, we don't have the skills for that. We don't have the tools for that. We've already, he's a teacher as well. We're happy teaching, and I am happy teaching. But to my surprise, he said, no, we should do it, and you should do it, and I want to help. I want to be a part of it. I thought, okay, great. So then I thought, well, if we're going to make YouTube videos, we need someone who can edit videos. Then when I realized my other best friend, Rocco, makes videos. He went to the college for that. But he's doing so many things, I thought, well, he's not going to be able to do it. So I approached him about it, and he goes, no, I think we should do it, and I want to make the videos. And it just was born out of that. So that's what we do. But it wasn't always like that. Basically, when I was in high school, as I said, my priorities, as you've heard at the masses, were friends, sports, grades. I worked hard in high school, not hard enough, but I did work sort of hard for my grades, and girls. I believed in God, but only to an extent. That's probably most teenagers and young adults today. God was a thought, maybe God exists, Jesus sounds like a nice guy, be nice to people, and and then you'll maybe you'll go to heaven if it's real. That's my idea of God. I prayed here and there. I like the idea of being a nice person and a good person. That's about where it ended. If my parents went to Mass, I would kind of hope that they would forget so I could sleep in for a few more hours. If I said a prayer, it was just like a Hail Mary before bed most nights, asking for God to make this girl like me or whatever, which totally goes against the concept of free will. So my idea of God was completely selfish. But like in our society, that's how we're groomed to think, right? We're just kind of me all the time. One thing that I did have, though, growing up was I actually always mention this in my talks because it's so important. My dad would always tell me, he would never be shy about explaining this faith to me when I was a little kid. We'd have an argument, for example. I was probably out of line in some way. We'd be freaking out at each other, and he would get a little upset, and I would run up to my room kind of scared. You make your parents upset. It could be, at least my parents, it could be a little scary. And I would run up to my room, upset and angry and confused. And after about 20 minutes, every single time, I have a knock on the door. My dad will come in, and completely different look that he had 20 minutes ago. Now a very gentle, compassionate look. And he would just very gently say to me, "Do you understand why I had to yell at you? Do you understand why I had to do this? I didn't want to do this, but do you understand why?" And it was so compassionate and with so much gentleness that it really touched my heart. And sometimes he would even add in some Bible quotes that he would throw at me. In the Bible it says this, and if you want to grow up and be a good husband and a good father one day, you're going to have to learn this. And sometimes I would tune out, like my 10-year-old self. But other times I would really listen, and it would really hit home. And that made a big impact on me. He would also tell me some stories. I'm going to share one with you right now, because this opened me up to the idea that God can intercede in our lives and that divine intervention can be a real thing. Even if it was only in the back of my mind, it planted some serious seeds. He was in Avalon one time, and he said he was going through a lot during this time in his life. I think I was only a little kid at the time. And because my grandparents had a shore house in Avalon. So he was going for a walk one night, and he said he was frustrated and worried about a few different things and not in the best mood. It was very late at night. I think he said it was like 11, 12 o'clock. And he is walking on the street, but he feels something tell him, go to the beach and go to the jetty. And for those that don't know what a jetty is, and I only say this because I didn't really figure out what that was until I was 14. It's a little embarrassing. Obviously, the rocks that go out into the ocean. Okay, great. Now that I preface that. I'm assuming most of you guys knew that already, but you never know. So he says, feels something say, go to the jetty. And he thinks to himself, no, I don't. Why would I do that? That's kind of stupid. I'm not going to do that. He's walking a little farther, and he feels again, go to the jetty. Go to the end of the jetty, he feels. And he thinks to himself, no, that can't be God. That's stupid. I don't have the time to do that. I'm not going to do that. As he feels this a second time, a truck started to run off the road a little bit. He sees headlights in his face, and in order to get out of the way, he kind of just runs, takes a couple steps, a jog to the left or to the right to get off the road, and he's a little frazzled. And by the time he comes to his senses, he realizes he's on the beach and he's staring at the jetty. And he feels it again, go to the end of the jetty. But again, he's thinking, this is stupid, sometimes you don't know if it's God speaking to you or you, or just your own thoughts. But in order to kind of shut this voice up, he says, okay, fine. So he starts to walk out onto the jetty. And he's thinking, this is dumb, what am I doing? He gets about halfway out there, and he thinks to himself, all right, I'm here. If this is you, God, what are you trying to do to me? This is really dumb. And then he feels it again. No, go to the end of the jetty. So he keeps walking. And he said he got to a few rocks out. The end, quote unquote. Nothing. Okay, this was dumb. And he feels it one last time. No, go to the very end of the jetty. So he said he walks out to the very last rock that you can safely walk out onto. And he said the second he got out there, he looked up, and it was a cloudy night. The clouds kind of parted, and a very bright moon shone down, lit up the rock that he was on, and he looked down and carved into the rock were the words, Jesus is the way. So he would tell me stories like that. And again, if you have children, or if you're young and you have children at one point in your life, I just want to say, especially fathers, but of course both parents, please don't be afraid to tell your kids stories like that, because it's going to plant a seed. And those are the things that really planted a seed. Him explaining Bible verses to me, him telling me stories about divine intervention like that, it opened me up to the idea that these things could be real, and that God really can play a big part in somebody's life and give signs and things like that. But of course, high school, happened, and I go throughout high school and have my priorities. I have my sports. I have my, my friends. And I didn't really think about God too much. I avoided the party scene, the typical high school / college party scene, for the most part, because I had 3 really great friends. Their names are Rocco, Anthony, and Ryan. Rocco and Anthony you've already heard about. They're part of JMJ Missions. So that's us. We had each other, and we didn't really have to kind of, slip up and sin in the ways that typical high school students do. But senior year rolled around, and Rocco was working all the time. Anthony was in a very committed relationship, so I really felt like a third wheel. And then my friend Ryan was prom king at Williamstown High School. He had tons of friends. So he was always having parties. His parents were rarely home, so there were always parties at his house and all kinds of stuff going on. He'd invite me to all these college parties, and I would say no, but eventually I got really bored, and I also thought, I'm 18. You know how teenagers think. Well, I'm technically 18, I'm an adult. I can do what I want, no one can tell me what to do. Okay, that's a very dumb way to look at life, because it doesn't mean things can't still damage your soul. It doesn't mean your choices don't still affect people and affect yourself. But that's how I thought. So I thought to myself, I'm 18 now, I'm about to turn 18, I can do whatever I want, I'm bored. So I started to go to some of these parties. And I started to live that college lifestyle for maybe 4 or 5 months. And I noticed a few things. Number one, the first thing I noticed was I wasn't as happy as the world says this is going to make you. People say, and when you get to your later years of high school and into college, what everybody tells you is this is what college is for. You go to college to learn, but people usually don't learn that much, and then they go to party, to have a good time, and to do whatever you want. And that's what I was kind of told by the society and by the media, and I realized I still felt kind of empty. I wasn't that happy. And I was like, there's still something missing there. And I also realized another thing, that your party friends are not the same thing as your real friends. So I kept going to these events, not really having the best time, not the time I thought I was going to have. I came up from a very big, loving family, extended family, and I always noticed that at these parties, the sense of community that I felt there it felt very different than the sense of community I would have with my family gatherings, or that I'd have at a place like this. Just a different vibe, a different feel, and it didn't really stand out to me. It all came to a head one night when I'll give you some details. I don't want to scar anybody, but I had to drive to Philadelphia one night because my friends duped me into driving for obvious reasons. They get there to the house, they completely tricked me into driving so that they could all, do what they wanted to do before we go out. We end up driving out there. I almost got into 2 accidents. I got lost in the middle of Philadelphia. This is right before I had an iPhone, so I didn't have anywhere to, So I get lost in the middle of Philadelphia, not the best area. One of my friends could have passed away in my car because of the way he passed out in the vehicle. I could have had my license taken away from me if there were any cops around. When I finally got to the club, 2 hours after everybody else, I said to my friends, I'm going home. I'm done with this. I've had a horrible time. I'm done with this. And they said, no, you're not. And that's, again, when I realized that your party friends are different from your real friends. And I said, what do you mean I'm not? They said, well, we need a ride home. This is right before Uber got big. We need a ride home, and you're taking us home. And because I felt this desire for community so badly, I didn't want to say no, so I stayed, had a horrible time. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm finally driving home in my car, and I thought to myself, tonight has been the perfect example of Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law being what can go wrong will go wrong, right? Right. But I didn't have a good time at all tonight. This is just, I don't know what's going on here. I'm driving home, and I'm almost laughing to myself, like, what am I doing? And I heard God, I felt God speak to me driving home that night, which was rare, because back then I hardly ever felt God in my heart, I hardly ever felt God speak to me. I didn't pray very often, as I said, but I felt an undeniable feeling, almost like a voice. And it didn't even feel like me. It felt like it was coming from somebody else. And it said to me, this is not who you are. This is not what you're meant for. I have much, much bigger plans for you. This is not what you're meant for. This is not who you are. I have such big plans for you. And I knew it was God. And I was almost a little freaked out because it was so sudden that I felt this as I was driving home. I thought, okay. 2 days later, I met the priest that changed my life, just by chance. One good thing I was doing at the time, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I was teaching religious education. Don't ask me why. I didn't know much about my faith. I shouldn't have been teaching religious ed. I taught 7th graders. I still have no idea if I scandalized them at all. I guess I'll know in heaven, hopefully. So, but me and my friend Rocco one time were in Mass, and again, I don't even know why I went to Mass, because I didn't go to Mass very often back then. But we were at Mass one time, me and him, and at the end of Mass, this is rewinding about 3 or 4 months before I had this little experience in the car, a volunteer got up and said, we're in need of religious education teachers. This is at my home parish, and we need them really badly, so if you want to volunteer, please let us know. And again, this is back right before I turned 19. This feeling said, you should do that. And I still don't even know why I even said yes to this feeling. I didn't even want to teach religious ed, but it's like this invisible force was saying, just do it. And I remember I turned and went to Rocco and I said, do you want to teach religious ed? And completely out of nowhere. We hadn't even been to Mass in 3 or 4 weeks, right? And he looks at me and he goes, and I thought, oh no, I'm embarrassing myself. But then to my surprise, he said, yeah, sure, why not? So we were teaching religious ed. Like I said, I probably shouldn't have been, but I was, and God used it. So 2 days later, we're teaching religious education after this experience, driving home from Philadelphia, and I feel this voice. And a new priest had just gotten assigned to our parish. And he thought it was nice, 2 young guys were getting involved with their faith, so he comes up to us, and he says, introduces himself to us, and he says, would you want to come to my office one night? Or no, he says, would you want to go out and get ice cream one night when you're done teaching religious ed? And I looked at him and I was like, I did not want to say yes. I was scared to say yes, right? But to be polite, I was like, sure, And my friend Rocco goes, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll come, hang out with you. And now, I don't know about you, but me back then, I was not a fan of priests. I didn't hate them or anything. I just didn't really ever think about priests, my experience with priests, they're a little aloof, a little far away. I didn't really see much of them besides on the way out of Mass. I thought they were nice guys for what they were doing for the Lord. That was about it. I didn't hang out with priests. So I was very freaked out by this, and I'm thinking, okay, I hope this guy does not come back 2 weeks from now. He does come back 2 weeks from now, to my unpleasant surprise. And he comes back and he goes, the ice cream thing is a little weird. He goes, you want to just come to my office? We'll talk when you're done after class today. And again, I just stayed silent because I did not want to go. And Rocco said, sure. I'm nudging Rocco, dude, no, I don't want to, we're not doing this. And he goes, just being nice. I said, well, oh my gosh. So end of class happens. He comes back, he takes us to his office, and this priest absolutely blew my mind. Blew my mind. He starts talking. First thing he did was he asked if I wanted to go to confession. Now, I had never been asked directly by a priest ever if I wanted to go to confession. And my first reaction was, I haven't killed anybody, why are you asking me this, But I said yes. Something said, it's a good thing. And in confessions, when I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't gone to confession since my confirmation retreat. I had 5 years of a lot of sins I had racked up during that time. I just never thought to go. And as I'm confessing my sins, I started to feel really, really good, better and better and better unexpectedly. Then when he absolved me, I felt better than I ever thought I was going to feel. And then he starts talking to me about a woman that he knew from 1996 up until 2004 when she passed away. Maybe you've heard of her because our diocese does some things with her cause for canonization, but her name was Maria Esperanza de Bianchini. Now, I didn't know who the heck this was. He's telling me about this woman. I'm like, okay, yeah, go on. What about her? That's her, a smiling, happy person. And I never met her, by the way. But he says she had all kinds of miraculous gifts. I'm like, miraculous gifts? What do you mean? He goes, well, she could look at you and she'd know your relationship with God by looking at you. Your past, if there was something that was keeping you from God, a wound, maybe you felt discouraged about something that happened to you and God didn't want you to feel that way, she could help you heal from that. What? She'd know about it by looking at you. Your present and even your future. Now, when we say future, no saint knows the future perfectly because that would totally contradict free will. But certain saints like Padre Pio or Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John Vianney, they could have an idea of what God's will for your life might be if you stay close to him and what may happen if you didn't. Stuff like that. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. And then he starts talking about how she read his heart multiple times and knew things she couldn't possibly know. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, right? And he said she had the stigmata, which was the wounds of Christ. St. Padre Pio is probably the most famous saint to ever have that. St. Francis of Assisi is probably the first saint that ever had the stigmata documented. We think it could actually be St. Paul, though, because St. Paul in one of his letters says, I bear on my body the wounds of Christ, the marks of Christ. Now, that he could just mean spiritually, that like Jesus had taken on his sins, and so his redemptive sacrifice was always present with St. Paul, but he may have been actually speaking physically, too. People are kind of split on that. But I didn't know that. You know, the stigmata like pretty much was, right? I'm like, what, really? You know, so I'm looking into this. He goes, yeah, but she only had it on Good Friday. You know, once a year, so it wasn't all the time. I said, okay. She'd pray over people, and they'd be healed of different diseases. I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yeah, like I've saw a few things like in front of me. I was like, oh my gosh. And many, the list goes on, many miraculous gifts. Now, he seemed legit. He seemed like he was being honest. Couldn't think of a reason he was lying to me. So I was like really excited. When I heard this, my mind was blown because I thought, if this is real, and these miracles do happen, I mean, this woman died in 2004. I mean, you know, it's like not very long ago. Then, oh my gosh, maybe like the church is real. Maybe like the Eucharist is real. Maybe Jesus did come. And maybe it wasn't just like a maybe he came, maybe he didn't. Maybe like he really did walk this earth and did do miracles and really died for us. And maybe confession, like you really are absolved of your sins. This stuff might be real. And the thought of that absolutely blew my mind. I thought, oh my gosh, that's really cool. So I remember I was driving home that night and I was physically shaking because I was so excited by what I heard. I couldn't believe it. You know, it's like God had gone from being some distant thought that he is in most people's lives to like right here, right now, oh my gosh, this might be legit. He might be right here with me for real. But I got home that night, and this is also something a little odd. And I remember I was about to take out my contacts. I don't know why, but I always remember me taking out my contacts that night, feeling great. And completely out of nowhere, this is also very new to me, I had a rush of horrible, horrible feelings and horrible thoughts, completely out of nowhere. And these feelings, they were saying things like, I was thinking all these horrible things like, you know, he's weird, all because he gave me a hug. He gave me a hug at the end of the confession, like, he's weird. Why would he hug you? That's weird. He's lying to you. Miracles don't happen. This stuff is completely fake. Don't ever go back. You're not a church boy. You're not a nerd like that. You know, you're a normal person with friends. He's lying. Don't ever go back. And they were like violent, nasty thoughts that completely came out of nowhere. And, you know, back then, I didn't know that nasty feelings like that, maybe like they're, you know, from the devil or whatever you want to say, from darkness, from original sin, whatever you want to call it. I never thought that maybe those feelings like aren't from God and they're like meant to attack me for a reason to get me out of, you know, to get me to never go back again, you know? So I was this close to just like completely never going back. You know, back then, if I saw, you know, if Anthony was a random person, Anthony being right back there, if he was a random person in high school and he gave me a dirty look and I was like really upset by that, I would just think to myself, okay, I hate Anthony now. I would never try to defend myself from those feelings or try to overcome those feelings. Okay, that's who I am. I hate Anthony. So I was this close to saying, okay, that's who I am. I'm never going back again. I'm freaked out. This priest is clearly lying to me. These things will happen. I'm never going back. But then I got another random inspiration. Again, very unlikely for me at this time period. And this little feeling said, why don't you just pray about it? I mean, God knows. If God's there, then he knows. Why don't you just say a prayer? So I took a deep breath, I said a prayer, and I said to myself, God, you know me, you know this priest, you know if this is all real or not, because I don't know if it is. I said, if you want me to go back, and you want me to keep learning about this stuff, then you let me know. But as of right now, I'm never going back. And then I said a Hail Mary. The second I finished the Hail Mary, all those horrible, nasty feelings, right out the door. And I got this peace that came over me. Very unexpectedly, as I keep saying. And I keep saying unexpectedly because that's how you know it's not you just conjuring things up in your mind. You know, it's, you know, the Holy Spirit speaking to you when it's like kind of out of nowhere. And I got this feeling, and it was almost like a feminine feeling. I really do think it was actually Mary. And it said, it's okay. Just keep going back. See what happens. It's okay. Just see what happens. said, okay. So I go back. I heard more stories about Maria Esperanza and other saints. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I feel incredible. I'd go home, and as soon as I got home, horrible thoughts and feelings. This stuff's fake. He's lying. These things don't happen. It's weird. He's weird. Don't ever go back. And then I would pray, Hail Mary. As soon as I finished Hail Mary, thoughts went right out the door. Every single time. So, the other side, the darkness in all of us, whatever you want to call it, it did not want me to keep coming. Because every time I would go, there'd be nothing untrustworthy, nothing weird that happened, but whatever thoughts that like the devil could get to try to get me to hang on to, where I would be flooded with. That happened about 4 or 5 times, and it wasn't until I prayed that those thoughts went away. Okay, so finally, one really cool thing, and I don't want to get too much into detail about this because this person's still alive, and the church is very, very prudent and very careful about canonizing people while they're like still alive. But this priest one time said to me, Dan, a relative of Maria Esperanza actually has some of the gifts that she had, that she said that would kind of get passed on after she passed away to continue her mission of like bringing people to God and bringing people back to the church. So maybe you will meet this person one time, and she can read your heart. That's the gift that she got. She can read hearts just like Maria Esperanza could. I thought, okay. But it was such an overload of information, I just didn't even think about it. So a few months later, I'm volunteering at my church again, and this priest actually got me together with this relative of Maria Esperanza. Like I said, I'm not going to name them just because, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and the church is so careful about when someone's still alive, claiming that they're super, super holy because we're all human, But anyway, we're in the room in his office together, and that day specifically, I was getting a really bad grade in my calc class. And I don't know about you guys, but my parents were really, really on me about grades. If I came in with a bad grade, it was like the end of the world. So I was getting not the best grade in my calc class in college, and I was so worried about telling my family about this grade. I thought they were going to say, you got to stop going around the church, you can't be volunteering anymore. So we're in this room with a relative of Maria Esperanza, and the priest says, I think Dan might need a reading. And when he said that, I thought she was going to pick up the Bible and start reading me something. Reading for the letter of St. James. All right, sure, yeah, give me a reading, right? But she looked at me, and the first thing she said to me was, you're going to work with the youth. And in working with the youth, you're going to save many souls, and then you'll find your vocation that God has for you. And that's actually what happened. 6 months later, I got hired as a youth minister, unexpectedly. And then through youth ministry, I ended up becoming full-time youth minister. And as I said, starting out of seminary, now we do JMJ missions, and I teach. But she also said this. She smiled, and she said, wow, you're really close with your family, and you're so worried about what they're thinking about your grades right now. And it was specifically that day that I was thinking about that. I said, what? What'd you say? She goes, yeah, you're worried about what they're thinking about your grades. She said, but it's okay because you're coming around the church and you're working really hard at this church, you're volunteering, you're doing God's will. And because you're doing God's work, you're doing God's will, your family will eventually understand. And as long as you keep working hard with your grades, God will take care of that, so no worries. I thought, oh my gosh. But when she said that, my jaw dropped to the ground. And at that point, once I had that confirmation, because there are other things that she said too, that she absolutely couldn't have known, specific stuff, not like, oh, you have 2 brothers. Okay, well, a lot of people have 2 brothers, you know what I mean? Oh, you have 2 parents. Okay, yeah, right? It was specific stuff. I was absolutely floored, and at this point, I was sold. It was all in, because the laws of physics had just been broken for me, and I realized that supernatural things do happen, and miracles really do happen. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is real, then everything I'm hearing about this woman is probably real. I got to know her family very, very well. The happiest, most normal people ever. By the way, a lot of people have this idea, and I think you guys definitely understand this because you're so welcoming and so nice, but they have this idea that being holy is you have to walk around like a monk all the time, It couldn't be further from the truth. Someone's really holy when they're just the happiest, most loving, most prayerful, most natural version of themselves. And this family and the people I was meeting at this church, I joined a young adult group, hung out with a great youth minister there. Oh my gosh, they were the most natural, fun, awesome, normal people ever. Normal, Maria Esperanza, for example, she loved going shopping. She loved planning parties. She was a wife, she was a grandmom, she was a mother, very normal, natural people, and you feel so much love around them. Genuine love that comes from prayer that you just don't ever want to stop being around them. Now, a little disclaimer, this is not everybody's cup of tea. So if the supernatural experience is not your cup of tea, that's quite okay. The church officially says, while these things do happen and they'll approve these things, like apparitions of the Blessed Mother, if this is not your kind of thing, it's okay. Maybe some people find the Lord through service. Some people find the Lord through a good community. Of course, we all find the Lord through the sacraments. But for me, this did wonders for my spirituality. So I was just all in at this time. However, and Rocco was too. However, my two other friends, Anthony and Ryan, wanted nothing to do with it. I remember what the tipping point for Anthony was, we would always get together and watch the Flyers. That was like our thing, you know? Actually, all Philly sports, which is a little sad because the Eagles lost today, but whatever. All Philly sports, that was our thing, right? And I remember the Flyers were in the playoffs, and they were playing the Penguins. I don't know if you have any Flyers fans in here, but this is a big deal, right? Me and Anthony and Rocco and Ryan, we'd always get together, and we'd always like get a buffalo chicken pizza and just tank that thing and have some sodas and watch the Flyers, like what we did. One night, big playoff game, Anthony calls me up to watch the Flyers, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going out to dinner with a priest tonight. He said, what? I said, yeah, sorry, missing the Flyers game. He was legitimately totally freaked out. I remember I actually got a call from him like the next day at work. He left me a voicemail, and he goes, Dan, I guess like the faith part thing is like okay, I guess. I mean, you do you, but I feel like you're changing and I'm losing you as a friend and I don't like it. Like that's what he said about me having a conversion experience. Of course, Anthony now speaks about his experiences just here 2 weeks ago to the confirmation students. We'll just move on from that. So he was freaked out because he would go to Mass for Christmas and Easter. He didn't really practice. He was never really taught too much about it. My friend Ryan was too busy partying. So those two wanted nothing to do with the faith. They were both a little freaked out by the whole thing. Me and Rocco were talking. We're like, you know, Maria Esperanza and Padre Pio and St. Teresa of Avila and, you know, St. Francis and the Stigmata. And they were just like, I don't care. Stop talking about it, right? And then something really interesting happened. Rocco went to bed one night, and he said a prayer before he went to bed. And Rocco said, you can cue the picture up there, Bill, if you can. Rocco said, oh, there he is. So Rocco is the one who was next to me, second from the left. He went to bed one night, and he said one of the hardest prayers he said in a long time. He said he knelt on his bed and looked at a crucifix, and he said, God, if it's your will, please use me as an instrument to get through to Ryan and Anthony, the two on the right. And he said that, and he said it with all of his heart, and he went to sleep. He woke up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., with a collapsed lung. 100 years ago, he probably would have died. He was rushed to the hospital. They fixed him up. They had to patch his lung up. It's called spontaneous pneumothorax. I still don't know what caused it. It was completely not, like, no cause. It just happens among thin young adult males. So completely with no real cause, spontaneously, his lung collapses. He's rushed to the hospital, and the exact same day, Ryan's grandmother passed away, and also his friend from college died of an overdose. The same exact day. So Ryan's grandmother passing away, his friend dying of an overdose, all of a sudden Ryan has to think about, okay, what do I believe about God, about heaven, about hell, about eternity, about what I'm here for, about what my mission is in life. So he comes to the hospital, meets the priest because the priest came to anoint Rocco, meets the same priest that caused our conversion, thought this guy was pretty cool, started coming around, met the family of Maria Esperanza, and he's now happily married with his children down in Venezuela. He actually met a friend of Maria Esperanza's family, and he now has 2 children because Maria Esperanza was from Venezuela, and lives down there with them. And like he's such a great dad. I do believe that his vocation as a father is what saved his soul. And he eventually stopped the party lifestyle and really became a grounded, wonderful husband and father. Anthony, the same week, well, Anthony said his priorities were his car. He said he didn't need God. Anthony would always say, I don't need God. You know, I'm comfortable with my life. He had his car. He had his friends. He had a very cute girlfriend that he was with for about 3 years. And he also had his job, which he worked at Scotland Run golf course. I don't know if anybody, yeah. And there's a lot of like pretty rich guys that golf there, and ladies too. And he would just have to sit there. I was jealous because I was sweating my butt off over on the range picking up balls because I worked there too. He was just sitting there cleaning off clubs, which is so much easier, and getting tons of tip money. So that was really annoying. But you know, I might be a little salty or jealous, I should say, about that. I'm sorry, salty is a Gen Z term. A little jealous about that. Okay, but anyway, he said he had his job, he had the girl, he had his friends, and he had his car. The same week, he totals his car. He was kind of already losing me and Rocco and Ryan because of the other things we were getting involved in. And to put it very bluntly, his girlfriend cheated on him with his boss, all in that same week. So we had to actually, there goes the job, right? Because he has to go there and see them flirt. And there goes the girl. So in the exact same week as Rocco's lung collapses, Anthony's, everything that he had in his life completely collapsed beneath him. And as he says in his talks and said to the confirmation students, he said, God, I get it. So he visits Rocco in the hospital, meets the same priest, meets Maria Esperanza's family, has a huge conversion experience, and now he does what he does. But my point there is, we always question why God allows bad things to happen, and sometimes we'll never know. We'll never know in some ways, not till heaven, will some of the things that happen to us make total sense. But there's always a reason. Rocco's lung collapsing to an average person is a horrible tragedy where he could have passed away. But what people don't know is that prayer he said the night before it happened and what it did for us as friends, and probably saved all of our souls, catapulted us into the faith and into the life of the church in ways that we never ever thought we could. So that's the story of Rocco. So now all four of us are just head first into this. We're coming to the parish 3 times a week. Can you imagine like 3 normal 19, 20-year-old kids going to church 3 times a week? Like, well, our own families thought we were weird. My mom thought I was in a cult. She was like, what is happening to you, you know? I also didn't have any prudence at the time. Like, I was like so zealous that I was like overzealous. So like, I would just go up to like, not random people, but anybody that would talk to me, and I'd be like, do you know about Maria Esperanza, the Stigmata, and St. Padre Pio, and St. Francis of Assisi, and then the Teresa of Avila, the gift of levitation, and bilocation? And like, I thought their reaction was gonna be, what? God's real? No way, right? Mom, call. God's real. He's like definitely real. Who knew? That's amazing, right? Oh my God, God's real. Yeah, come to church. I'm sorry, Dan. I gotta stop talking to you. I gotta go to confession right now. Let me find a priest. That's how I thought people were gonna react. They did not react that way. Some people were very open. They thought it was very nice and like saw the fruits of it. Other people were completely freaked out. They had no idea what I was talking about. And I had to learn, that there's different ways to pray about these things and to speak about these things. There's different times, different places to talk about these kinds of things. And sometimes everyone has a different button. I call it a God button that needs to be pushed. And it's not the same as mine. Some people just, their God button is pushed in different ways with different experiences. And God may have somebody else besides me in their life to evangelize them. But I'll talk a little more about that tomorrow. So I'll leave you with one last cool thing that happened to me. Same woman, relative of Maria Esperanza. About 3 or 4 months, I was 19 at the time, 3 or 4 months after all these experiences, completely out of nowhere, I woke up with all kinds of horrible doubts about my faith. Now, I had already met the family of a mystic, maybe soon to be saint. She's officially, Maria Esperanza's cause for canonization has officially been opened by the Vatican. She's called a servant of God. So I'd already met the family of a saint. I had already had supernatural experiences happen to me. But yet, 3-4 months in, I was completely doubting. I thought, well, what if Buddhism's the real faith, or what if God doesn't exist and this is all just made up, or what if it's Islam, or what if it's, and all these random thoughts are going through my mind. Now, before my conversion, this didn't mean anything to me. If I had a doubtful thought, I would have thought, I don't care, think about God anyway, right? At this time, it was causing me some severe emotional sadness. I was very sad to have these doubts, but I didn't tell anybody. Well, Maria Esperanza's family visits New Jersey, and I went to my church this one night. Like I said, at this time, having these doubts, did not tell anybody. We're in the church, and there's all the people in the church see Maria Esperanza's family as celebrities because they're very holy people, and family of a saint. Why wouldn't you see them that way? So this woman walks into the church meeting. It's a Thursday night. We pray the rosary. They reflect, and then afterwards, there's just refreshments and social stuff. And I look at her throughout all the people in this room, and I see she's making eye contact with me, she's trying to look at me. I'm like, okay, what's that about? Okay. A few minutes later, and I'm being totally fake, by the way. I'm going up to Anthony and Rocco, pretending to be in a good mood, totally fake. Hey guys, how's it going? Doing great, thanks. How about you? Fake smile, the whole bit. No one knows that I'm going through this. My friends didn't notice. I look at her again, and I see her throughout all the people in the room. As everyone's settling down, she's looking at me again. I thought, no. There's no way this woman knows that something's up. Well, a couple seconds later, the same priest comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, says, "Hey, Dan, she thinks there's something up, and she'd like to know if you can talk to her after the meeting tonight." I said, "Oh, man." Okay, meeting ends. She sits down with me, looks at me, smiles, and she says, "So why are you so confused?" I said, okay, whatever God wants to tell me, I'm all ears. You go ahead, She says, "There's a young man who's jealous of your spirituality that you've been hanging out with, and he has many doubts about God, and these doubts have bled over into you from spending so much time with him." I said, "Oh, okay." And then she goes, "You're not wearing your scapular." Now, scapular, that's underneath the clothing. And weirdly enough, I had just lost my scapular about 2 weeks before that. She goes, "You should wear blessed objects. They're really good to protect you." And she goes, "You know what? Okay, well, I'll say a little prayer over you, and the doubts will get better." She said, "God allowed these doubts to manifest themselves for you so that you can wrestle with these doubts now and grow, so that later on you'll never struggle with these doubts again." I said, "Okay." She goes, "But keep praying. You have to keep praying, and then they'll just get better. You'll be fine." I said, "Okay." She opens the little fanny pack she had, and out falls a scapular, literally. Falls right out of the little fanny pack onto the table. And she goes, "Oh, look at that." I said, "Oh, wow, yep, it's a scapular." She goes, "I think that's my husband's. He doesn't need it. You could just have it." I said, "Okay." A couple days go by. I'm like, all right, what did she mean? Young man, jealous of your spirituality, what? I retraced my steps. I retraced my days. I had no idea. I didn't put it together until she had told me. But the night before I woke up that morning with these doubts, I was at a get-together. And a friend of ours, we'll just call him Steve, a friend of ours was a very, very hardcore atheist. Me and Rocco got into a big debate with him about the existence of God. Between me and you, we did very well in this debate because he started coming around the church after that, but that's for a different day. We got in this big debate about the existence of God. Debate ended. I felt fine, it was great. I hung out with my friends a little longer, went to sleep that night. I didn't realize it was the next morning that I woke up, and all of those doubtful thoughts, all those doubtful things were just in my mind and in my heart. I didn't even know it was the next morning until she told me. And I reflected on it for a few days, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was him. It was the debate I got into the night before. There's no way she could have known that. She was on a different continent when it happened. I didn't even know it until I reflected on it, right? And it turns out he was a little jealous of our spirituality because a couple weeks after that, I'm dropping him off at a friend's house. And I see him walking in the door, and I said, "Steve, what do you have in your hand?" He's trying to, pretend he doesn't have anything in his hand. I said, "Steve, is that my saint book from my car in your hand?" He goes, "You got to start somewhere, right?" He tried to steal my book on saints. I'm like, dude, you could have just had it. I just asked for it. I didn't even read it that much anymore. Take it, But the kid was really searching and didn't want anybody to know. There's no possible way she could have known that. Now, as I said, these are charismatic gifts. It doesn't mean these people are saints, that they're super holy, but what it does mean is that God has really amazing ways of divinely intervening in our lives. What these things for me say, what the miracles for me say, is that, God does exist. In our darkest times, it's harder to understand it. I'm a logical thinker. He really does exist. When Jesus came, he really did walk the earth. The accounts you read in the Bible, they're real stories, albeit from different perspectives, but real stories. And the sacraments, when you receive the Eucharist, it's really God. It really is. He loves you that much that he wants to be body and soul, physically and spiritually, inside of you, one with you. That's where we get all of our grace from, is the Eucharist, right? Confession. When the priest does absolve you, when he says those words of absolution, you really are forgiven. The only one bringing up those sins, that guilt, is you, or the devil, or whatever you want to call it. But it ain't God. He literally forgets about it. I remember there's the story about St. Faustina. She was having visions of Jesus, but sometimes the devil would pose as Jesus, and she didn't know when Jesus would appear, if it was Jesus or a demon as an imposter. So she goes to her spiritual director and she says, "Father, I don't know if this is Jesus or not." And he goes, "Well, the sacrament of confession, that actually is like a seal, and the devil can't get into that. So there's no way the devil will actually know your last sin that you said in confession. So next time Jesus appears, before you say anything, demand that he tell you the last sin that you named in confession. because the devil won't know it. She goes, okay. Jesus appears, and she says, my spiritual director says, I need to demand that you tell me the last sin that I mentioned in confession. And you know what Jesus' response was? I forgot. I don't know. I absolved it. She went back to her spiritual director. Spiritual director said, that's Jesus. That's him. You can trust it. Why? Because the only one bringing up all that negativity is from the other side. God is all about love. He's all about joy. He's all about forgiveness. He's all about service. Bishop talked about that in his homily yesterday. That's how you know a true saint. Joy, love, service, all the fruits of the Holy Spirit, you know? And if you let these graces in your heart enough, from the Eucharist, the graces you get in confession, prayer, the rosary, the liturgy of the hours, if you say it, that's not just for priests, that's for everybody. I developed a huge liking for that after I left seminary. One-on-one prayer from the heart to God, in Eucharistic adoration, out in nature. When you do these things, you literally start to become like Christ. It's not just like you're following him, although you are. He starts to become absolutely one with you. And when you start to become truly one with Christ, you let go of your own desires and let him in, some pretty cool things can start happening. It doesn't have to be miraculous, but people will feel it. They'll just feel a new light in your personality. You know, things that shook you up before won't shake you up so much. You know, sins that you really got you before, you know, they won't get you so much. You know, you're not perfect, but you'll be able to overcome them better. People that irked you before, they won't irk you quite as much. I remember before my conversion, if Ryan invited some people over, and when it was myself, Anthony, Rocco, and Ryan hanging out, I was like, oh, these are my guys, my boys, you know, it's like heaven for me. Friday night, you know, I have my pizza, I have my friends. But every now and then there'd be a knock at the door, and Ryan would always, because he was such a people pleaser, he would always be inviting people that weren't as close to us. Before my conversion, that ruined my night, I can't even tell you. If someone came over that I wasn't a big fan of, I was so dramatic about it. I was like, oh my gosh, now I gotta pretend to be nice. Now I gotta put on a smile. Now I gotta exert energy. You know how we get. After my conversion, not perfect, but when you have God in these kinds of ways, when you take it seriously, you get kind of excited to meet new people. That's the feeling I got here. Every time I've come here, people are excited to meet new people, excited to welcome people. I was excited. And when we have unexpected guests, I would think, all right, how can I make this person's night tonight? I wouldn't always be perfect at it, but that's the general tone. That's the general feeling. So I'll leave you with this. The reason that the 4 Gospels are called gospel is because gospel means good news. And this stuff is all completely real. The miracles for me, they solidify this. Why did Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John decide to call it the good news? Because, oh my gosh, what do they find out? When Jesus came, they found out that God does exist, number 1. He's there. Number 2, even though we sin against him all the time, and we all have all these horrible sins, and he could just obliterate us and be upset with us and take us out in 1 second if he wanted to, he's like really, really, really nice. And he loves us unconditionally. And he forgives us of all of our sins. And the sacraments are real, you know? But God exists. He loves you. He knows you intimately. He's got a plan for your life. Heaven's real, so the worst thing that could happen is you pass away, and then there's heaven. I mean, this is literally one of the biggest attacks of Christianity, is that it's too good to be true. But it's not. It is true. It's not too good to be true. It is true. A priest once told me, our faith is not natural, it's supernatural. And that's why we're here today, 2,000 years later, still talking about it. So please remember always that God will intervene in your life if you ask him. Maybe he doesn't always give you the sign that you want, but he's always there for you. He will always intervene for you in the times you probably least expect it, for our own humility, and that it's never too late to turn back to him, and no problem is ever too much for him. Thank you so much.
I don't know what you think, but I think our mission got off to a pretty great start tonight. You know what? Everything Anthony was talking, Daniel was talking about. You know, to get up here and tell your story is not an easy thing. So to hear it, Daniel, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I can honestly say a lot of what you said I can relate to. I should share some of my stories with you sometimes. But a lot of things came to me, a lot of things I thought about for your talk. But one of the things that really struck me was looking at your sign, one soul at a time. And it all started by a priest inviting you. You were inviting Rocco, inviting Ryan, inviting Anthony. One soul at a time, you made a conversion to our Lord. So that's one of the things I would hope you take from this tonight is that's all our mission, one soul at a time. So when you go home tonight, you see somebody tomorrow, invite them here. Hopefully Daniel's getting a whole bunch of souls tonight, but go out and invite somebody else. So that hopefully anybody that's questioning, doubting, being tormented, whatever, can experience Jesus and come to our Lord. So we thank you for being here tonight. We also have a hospitality in the room through the double doors back there. We hope you'll stay, come by and have some refreshments with us, and get a chance to meet and talk with Dan and Anthony. Thanks for coming.